Can you think of an acute example, something that might even be hard to believe, of a turnaround that you've witnessed, where you've had a patient come in who was at the end of their rope, whether it was emotionally or whether they had a food allergy they didn't know about, or they were just being driven insane by anxiety, where you were then able to test them, get their levels, put them on a track, they joined together with you, and you guys pursued that strategy together, and a 180-degree turnaround happened. Does one come to mind right off the top of your head?
I've had several of those, some close to me. A couple of years ago, he came to me. He had been seeing another provider, had been placed on hormones, thyroid medication, had taken himself off the thyroid medication. It was making him feel bad. Got to the point where they weren't managing his care very well. So he finally came to me. I had a professional relationship with him. And I started looking at everything, surveying everything, and looking at all his labs. And I realized there was some missing stuff. So I was like, hey, let's go ahead and look at this stuff first. Because in my interview process with him, and going back, now this is, again, he was going to somebody else in my field, was a physician that had, evidently, I don't know what he did from the thorough interview process, but when this gentleman was telling me his life story and how he got here, there was a distinctive trigger in his change in metabolic health, where he started gaining 30 pounds by 30 pounds by 30 pounds until he became obese.
Man.
And he showed me a picture of himself when he was a kid. And I had known this guy for a few years. I never knew that that's what he used to look like. So I thought immediately something else is going on here. Turns out we did a prolactin on him, which is something you should always run on anybody when you're considering metabolic dysfunction. Rule out a prolactinoma, which is a pituitary tumor that can cause metabolic issues. And his came back well over 300, abnormally high. And so I called him. We had to send him to, again, this is another example of me working with conventional medicine. If something's out of my scope, I'm going to refer it out. Referred him to an endocrinologist to have an MRI. Turns out he had a 10 millimeter tumor on his pituitary gland that had been sitting there for like 10 years.
What the hell?
Nobody he'd ever seen had caught this. And I just saw him recently, and he's lost 90 pounds. He looks great. He's incorporating a lot of the stuff. Incredible. His wife came to me. They're business owners. They have special needs child. I see a lot of patients with special needs children. Most of my patients are very empathetic people, very much givers of themselves, to the point where they end up on E, no gas in the tank. And so, and his wife came to me, was having some issues, migraine, fatigue, digestion issues, food sensitivity tests. She was allergic to or inflammatory to red dye. And just through removing those things, she has lost weight. She has no more migraines. Her gut health is better, and I helped manage her stress. She also had some adrenal issues him too. But now to see both of them operating out of a much better space, you see people that own businesses and have tons of responsibility all the time. And sometimes I look at these people and the physical state of them, or just their energy level, and I think to myself, like, how in the world is this person accomplishing all these things? But most people are really resilient, and they're just surging through all of these symptoms every day, running off of caffeine, using something to go to sleep, using something to wake up, and don't really know or have forgotten what it feels like to be naturally full of energy.